And welcome back to Rockline. It's an evening with Ric Ocasek and your calls at 1-800-344-ROCK and BC, Bob Coburn. RocklineRadio.com will give you an update as to who's coming up. Next week, a special encore Rockline with Def Leppard. The following week, we are back live with Deep Purple. And then the night before Thanksgiving is a traditional night off for Rockline. And we will give you a U2 classic encore, a compilation of a couple of shows they've done with us in the past. So that should be a lot of fun. Time for the encore question. It's brought to you by Nicorette. A revolution in quitting smoking has arrived. Nicorette, fresh mint. Start chewing and start quitting. Time for the encore question left by one Jackson Brown.
Hey, Rick, this is Jackson Brown. Hey, you're such a monster in the studio. Do you find it as fulfilling or as interesting to play live? And if so, are you going to do more live gigs?
My answer to that question is I find it more adventurous and fun to actually be in the studio making records, and live would probably be my second choice. So I'd have to say that I won't be playing as much live as I will be in the studio, Jackson.
Now, you did, 3 shows, I think? I think you did Conan O'Brien?
And I'm pretty tired from that, too.
Rick needs a nap, ladies and gentlemen.
I did a few clubs. I just did a few shows. I did a CBGB's benefit. I actually played in Boston because it was my hometown. And I did some television appearances, but that was quite fun.
But that's going to be it for Nexterday?
I would think so. That's quite a lot of work.
Come on, Rick. Come on. We want to see you play live again.
I might add one. No, we'll see. I'll see what goes on.
All right. Well, we won't rule it out. RicOcasek.com will keep you up to date, but I'm getting the don't hold your breath feeling right now. Next caller in Rockline at 1-800-344-ROCK is Rob from Dayton, Ohio. Rob, welcome.
Hi, it's great to talk to you, Rick and Bob.
Hi, Rob.
I have a quick question for you, Rick. I really like the Door to Door album, and I was wondering, the sounds that you got out of that, was that the first album that you had ever produced?
No, actually it was not at all. I probably had been producing records since around 1980, and I had quite a few records, under my belt from that. But I think it was producing that record, though, was more like the band producing the record. It's just that we didn't have like an outside producer for that record. I think that was sort of a record that we all pitched in on. So I would call it sort of a band-produced album.
As someone, and I mentioned quite a few of the bands earlier in the show, who's produced so many artists, what producers influenced you the most? I know Roy Thomas Baker and Mutt Lange must have had an effect on you.
Well, certainly Roy did, just in his approach to recording, his sort of freedom and I probably couldn't be in as good of a mood as Roy is, but Roy was always in a wonderful mood and, an eccentric quality to him, but he always kept things moving quickly. Very opposite of Mutt Lange, who dwelled on things for eons of time and tried to perfect every little note. I guess both ways worked pretty well. Other producers, in the beginning, I used to like Tony Visconti. I used to like John Cale. I guess I didn't really have a list of big favorites, but I paid attention to those two particularly.
Visconti, to me, especially his work with Bowie, always came out seemingly effortless. You knew that a lot of effort was being put into it, and a lot of attention to detail and everything, but it sounded so easy to listen to and so natural and organic.
Yeah, for its time, it was pretty interesting. It was very good. But there's a lot of great producers.
Rob, thanks for joining us tonight on Rockline. Thanks for the call. Eddie's in Rocky Point, New York, and now you're in Rockline with Ric Ocasek.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good.
How are you?
My question for Rick is, I want to know what happened concerning the A&R job he had at Elektra. What were his expectations going in, and what happened as a result of his, doing that?
Because I'm not there anymore. It's funny, my expectations going in were that I was always a fan of Elektra records, even from the late 60s. They seemed to have all the great creative bands, The Doors and Love and Incredible String Band and Phil Oakes and all kinds of great innovative music. And then, of course, the Cars were on Elektra at a later time, so I always felt pretty home there. I thought when I went in that I would be able to sort of sign relatively adventurous music. Sometimes I was naive enough to think that I could sign bands that were totally unknown. I found out quickly that that wasn't the scheme of things at a major label. And it took me even though I presented it, and I have to say that Sylvia Rohn, who was president of Elektra at that point, was pretty sympathetic and did, meet all the artists that I did bring in. But obviously I don't think too many of them were ready for prime time. So I decided to leave.
It's fair to say that you were looking for something different than what they wanted?
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much that as maybe that I personally didn't understand, the mechanism of a major label. The way that, the overhead situation, all the sort of business part of it. I was really going in under the creative end of things, and the creative side of it was there to help find bands, and also to produce. But, of course, the bands I was finding were more things that I guess I liked, and maybe my tastes were a tad eccentric for, a major label.
You're right, though. Those early days of Elektra, Clear Light, I think Paul Butterfield was on Elektra. They had a roster that was unbelievable, really creative, and at the time, even at that time, very adventurous, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of those bands took off, certainly the Doors.
Yeah, because they were true artists, and they last.
Funny how that works, isn't it, Eddie? Thanks for being on with us tonight. Alex is in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and we had Stillwater to take his call. Hi, Alex.
Hi. My question was, what was the inspiration behind Candio?
The song or the album itself?
The song. The song?
Okay.
It's hard for me to remember. It's a long time ago that was written. I kind of liked. I remember just kind of just liking the word Candio. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's because I like candy. It's just one of those kinds of songs that doesn't have much of a sort of story or message, but it was a neat up rock song, and that's really just, to me, it was just sort of a pop song, that I kind of just probably wrote relatively quickly.
You sang it like you were enamored with the way that it sounded.
Actually, Benjamin sang Candy.
Oh, Benjamin sang it. Oh, really? Well, then he tapped into whatever you were thinking, because there's a certain affectation to the way that song was sung that sounds great. And of course the entire album with Let's Go, the Vargas cover that we talked about, just a great piece of work. We're going to play the song that begins your brand new CD, Nexterday, which is the first in 8 years from Ric Ocasek. Tell us about the song Crackpot.
Crackpot? That's my little autobiographical song there. I opened the record with the way I felt, Crackpot.
That's how you felt about yourself at the time you were?
No. I mean, it's a kind of a funny word. My grandmother used to say, that guy's a crackpot. Those people are crackpots. So I don't know. Maybe it just sort of flew out of my mouth. But that song Crackpot is a little comic search of my psyche there. Yeah.
The name of the song is Crackpot off the brand new CD Nexterday by Ric Ocasek, his first in 8 years. Don't do that to us again. We're taking your calls right now. Toll free at 1-800-344-ROCK. That's 7625 at the end. Rick is in Bayonne, New Jersey. Rick, you're on Rockline.
How you doing, Rick?
Good, pretty good.
My question is, I have a friend of mine that said that he recorded you back in the day at RPM Studios in Manhattan, Dominic Mader. And I was just wondering, curious, why you guys chose to record in Manhattan at the time when you guys were originally from Boston, and how much of an input did Dominic have on your recording?
I sort of remember the name Dominic. Maybe it was for a particular, reason that I'm sure we didn't record a full album there. I think we only recorded one. Actually, I don't know. Oh, we recorded one full album. I think it was Panorama in New York. But that was at a different studio. But I do remember the name Dominic. So actually curious to which song it might have been. But we probably had a great time with them, I can tell you that.
And why New York? Just the energy and the vibrance of the city?
Well, yeah, it's pretty close to Boston as well. And, you know, we tried to record every record in a different place. And we did actually manage to do that. I don't think we ever recorded it, you know, in the same place twice for the albums. First album was London, then it was L.A., and then New York, and fourth one was in Boston, and then we went back to London at a different studio for Heartbeat City, and we recorded Electric Lady for Door to Door. So back and forth, just because for variety, you know, for environmental change, and, you know.
Just to mix it up and, you know, tap into the energy wherever you were.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed for Nexterday, a lot of it was done at One Take Studio. Is that yours?
Yeah, it is.
So that's is a short commute for you in that one, then, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's an easy commute.
And you did some.
You have to do everything in one take. That's the only problem.
And you did some at Electric Lady down Village Way in New York City.
I did a couple of drama tracks there. That is my favorite recording studio in New York. Most of the things I produce, I end up going to Electric Lady to do. This is my favorite. It's Jimi Hendrix's old studio. It's in the West Village. It's on street level and here in New York. And, you know, bands can go out and get pizza.
We've done some Rocklines there with bands playing live, and it still sounds great. You know, it's a pretty funky studio, no doubt about that, but, you know, funky's got nothing to do with sound.
No, the sound's always been good there.
Sound's always been good, absolutely.
Yeah.
Next caller is Bill in Oklahoma City. Bill, you're on Rockline with Ric Ocasek.
Hello, Rick. How are you?
Hi, Bill. Fine.
I have always sensed kind of a certain detachment in your music and your lyrics. My question is, have you ever been tempted to just bare your soul, to be overtly political?
Sometimes I feel like being political, especially when I look at the political situation these days. I don't know that. I think some people do political things better. I don't know. I've thought about. I've even thought about doing a whole album that might be that way, but then I'm starting to preach, and I don't know that I want to be a preacher. So, I mean, preaching, you know, politics. I certainly vaguely pay attention to it, but I don't know. Sometimes I think, you know, I'm really just a pop writer, and I shouldn't sort of. I do write, you know, political songs in a sense of about relationships and people and things like that, but nothing overtly. I also think political songs are like pop songs, because whatever's going on in the world politically today, in 2 weeks will change into something else, just like pop music does in pop culture.
Is it difficult to separate the political climate of any given time from what you do write? I mean, even though it may not be overt, I would think some of it would seep in there somehow.
Oh, it seeps. You know, it definitely seeps in. It has a lot to do with your, probably, mood. Yeah, I'm sure it seeps in.
A good friend of mine once said to me, it's okay to preach as long as you don't let them see the pulpit.
Yeah, okay.
You know, just kind of be cool about it, stand in the background, and let it go on its own. I have no idea what your politics are. I would imagine many of the listeners to Rockline right now have no idea what your politics are. Would we be surprised if you did a political album as to what your stance is? Or like most artists, do you have mostly left-leaning?
I'm a peace and love guy, you know. I guess we won't get into politics, you know, but I don't know if they would be surprised, you know. It's almost like complaining. You know, I don't know that I want to complain. I'd like to complain. I would like to help complain. If people want to get together and complain together, you know. I don't want to be the only complainer. Let's have a group complaining session. It always works better that way. It does work that way. That's how we stopped Vietnam. Well, you're right. That is how we stopped Vietnam. And, well, I'm not going to get political either. We'll just draw the line right there. We're not going to stop this one. We're going to play Let's Go. Is there any mystery behind this song, or is this just a fun rock and roll song that you wrote? There's no mystery behind Let's Go. It's Let's Go, I like the nightlife, baby.
Can't beat that. Let's go on Rockline.